Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the Shinigami of the Four Winds? Part 1. Huge shout out to Doc Holiday 0316 for this story. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Underneath the main execution grounds and physical center of the Soul Society, there was a secret underground area. It was a large cavern with several small cliffs and a few dead trees. Two men soon entered the training area. One of them appeared to be a man in his 20s, while the other looked like a teenager. The older man had bright blue eyes and spiky blonde hair with two bangs framing his face. He wore a standard Shinigami shihakusho with white tabi socks and black open-toed sandals. On his left arm was an armband with a badge that identified him as the lieutenant of the 5th Division of the Gotei 13. The katana hung from the left side of his waist. It had a pure white sheath, was pure and a pale yellow hilt, while the tsuba was silver in color with a stylized flame pattern and shaped like a square with the corners cut off. The teenager also had spiky blonde hair and bright blue eyes. An interesting feature that he had were 6 marks, 3 on each cheek, which resembled whiskers. He also wore a Shinigami shihakusho, but with a few modifications. The sleeves of his kozode ended just below his elbows, while shihakusho opened up a bit at his chest. He wore black, open-toed sandals in place of the standard tabi and waraji, and a burnt orange sash in place of the standard white one. He customized his outfit with a headband and necklace. The headband was made of black cloth and had a metal plate with the kanji for Shinigami sewn on, while the necklace consisted of a green crystal on a leather string. On the left side of his sash was a katana. It had a circular tsuba with a spiral pattern on it and a black hilt with burnt orange hilt wrappings. It was kept in an ebony black sheath. The older man was Minato Namikaze, the former Yondaime Hokage in his past life and the current lieutenant of the 5th Division, which was under the command Captain Sosuke Aizen, while the teenager was Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, Minato's son and the lieutenant of the 13th Division, under the command Captain Jashiro Yukitake. The father and son duo were currently at this secret training ground so that younger Namikaze could undergo his Bankai training. This would be the first time, and hopefully the last time, that Naruto would need to do this training. As he walked into the training area, Naruto let out a long whistle while taking a look around the area. "I can't believe nobody has ever found this place before, Dad," Naruto said to Minato, who turned around and gave his son a warm smile. "Well, rumor has it that this training area was created by the former captains of the 2nd and 12th Divisions before they left the Soul Society with 9 other Shinigami," Minato explained. Naruto scowled upon hearing his dad's explanation. "Why do I have a feeling that Snake Aizen was behind their exile?" Naruto asked rhetorically with a hint of venom when he said the 5th Division captain's name. Due to his life back in Konoha, Naruto had developed into a very empathetic person and, as a result of this, he was able to easily see through the act that Aizen was putting on since he first arrived in the Soul Society 3 years. He knew that the Sasuke Aizen that everyone else saw, the kind person that treated his subordinates with kindness and compassion, was just a mask he put on, and he had a feeling that Aizen was up to something. Naruto had relayed his suspicions to his father and mother, Kushina Uzumaki, the 3rd seated officer of the 5th Division, though they also were suspicious of their own captain, well before Naruto arrived. This information was soon disseminated among the other shinobi turned Shinigami, who, having realized the seriousness of the situation, decided that they should prepare to confront Aizen before he made his move, whatever that move may be. That move, however, came much sooner than they expected, and it struck close to home, so to speak, for Naruto when Rukia Kichiki, one of the other members of the 13th Division, was arrested in the world of the living and was sentenced to be executed by Central 46, the main governing body of the Soul Society. The suspicious nature of Rukia's arrest and punishment left little doubt in the minds of the former shinobi that Aizen had hand in this. The fact that it was Rukia of all people who had to suffer due to Aizen's manipulations was what really got Naruto's blood boiling. The former shinobi wasted no time in preparing for a confrontation with Aizen, but they were now racing against the clock. Naruto and Minato were already stretching their luck, as Rukia's execution was to take place 8 days from now. "Alright. Let's get started," Minato said enthusiastically as he clapped his hands together. "Since we're pressed for time as it is, I'm giving you a limit of 3 days to achieve Bankai. You must subjugate your zanpakuto's materialized spirit in those 3 days. If you can't, then you'll just have to confront Aizen without Bankai. Do you understand?" Minato asked as he wanted to make sure his son understood exactly what he was saying. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll achieve Bankai in half that time," Naruto said as he flashed a confident grin. Minato returned the expression. "You remind me of your mother so much. Now then, please activate your Shikai," Minato instructed. Naruto nodded and unsheathed his zanpakuto, holding up in the air with his right hand. Concentrating, he took a deep breath and said the release command. Break through the storm, Kei's no wa, fury of the winds, Naruto yelled. Orange-colored spiritual energy suddenly covered the sword, which was then overlapped by a small cyclone. The cyclone dissipated, revealing Kei's no wa Shikai state. It took the form of a Chikuto sword with a katana-like hilt. The blade was 3 feet in length. It was silver in color, while the hilt was a dark red color. Attached to the base of the hilt was a leather strap with 3 charms on it. The first charm took the appearance of a red Uzumaki clan symbol, the second charm took the form of the kanji for wind, and the third charm took the form of the kanji for shinobi. Naruto twirled the sword in his hands before resting it on his shoulder by the flat part of the blade. Very good. Now, focus your Reiatsu into your sword and have Kei's no wa materialize, Minato said. Naruto gave a nod in affirmation and pointed his blade in front of him. He began to focus his Reiatsu into the sword until the blade was completely covered in an orange aura. Suddenly, the Reiatsu shot out like a bolt of lightning and hit one of the cave's walls, creating a large cloud of dust. The cloud slowly started to dissipate, revealing a silhouette hidden within it. Well, it took long enough to decide to train for Bankai, though I'm still surprised that you even had the guts to try, Naruto. The silhouette said, as the dust clouds finally disappeared, the manifested spirit of Naruto's zanpakuto, Kei's no wa, or Kei's for short, was finally visible. He took the form of a man who looked like he was in his late 20s, just like Minato, with a slightly muscular build. He had spiky blood-red hair that ended midway down his back, with 2 bangs framing his face, while his emerald green eyes had slit-shaped pupils. Kei's wore a dark red haori with sleeves that ended midway at the forearms, a black flame pattern along the hemline, and a black spiral on the back. Along with the coat, he wore a mesh armor undershirt, a black hakama with a red sash, and Jetta-style sandals. He also had a spiral tattoo on his stomach that had 2 half circles above the top and bottom of it. Each half circle had 4 protrusions on it pointing away from the spiral, an. Think of the 8 trigram ceiling-style seal and you get the picture. In his right hand he held a customized straight blade katana that took the form of his Shikai state. The blade was 3.5 feet long and was black with a silver edge to it. Unlike the blade Naruto wielded, however, the hilt of the blade Kei's carried was a burnt orange color and had black hilt wrappings. In place of the leather strap there was a thin chain that had 1 charm on it, the kanji for wind god. The tsuba was still circular with a spiral pattern on it, but had 4 protrusions on the top and bottom of the circle. Naruto gave Kei's a smirk as he held his Shikudo in a 2-handed grip. I'll achieve Bankai in less a day, you can be sure of that, the young Uzumaki declared. Overconfident as always, aren't we? Kei's replied as he gave Naruto a smirk of his own. Don't underestimate me. I'm not beepy and impulsive like I was 3 years ago, Naruto stated defiantly. Yes, but you're still as dense as you've always been, Kei said in a mocking manner. The smirk on Kei's face grew as his insult got his desired reaction out of Naruto, if the visible vein that popped out of Naruto's forehead was a sign of anything. Shut up. I was able to graduate from the Shino Academy in less than a year, for Kami's sake. Naruto snapped back. Minato intervened before the insults escalated into something worse. Will you two please stop fighting? The former Hokage kindly asked with no visible sign of irritation in his voice. He knew he had to stop the fight between his son and the materialized spirit of his son's zanpakuto before things got really ugly really. Fine. The sooner we're done here the sooner I can go back to pissing off my roommate. Kei said, referring to Kurama who was just as annoyed by the zanpakuto spirit's taunts as Naruto was as he lazily held his katana in front of him in a one-handed grip. Your challenge is simple enough. You just have to defeat me in armed combat. You can use anything you need to fight me with. Kido spells, Zanjutsu, and even Shunpo are fair, the only exception to this is Kurama's Reiatsu which you cannot use under any circumstances. Do you understand? The manifested Zanpakuto explained. Yep, Naruto replied. By the way, you'll have to defeat me quickly because I will kill you if you don't. Are you ready? Kei said in a nonchalant manner. Naruto paled slightly at hearing this, but soon regained his composure. Good. Now then let's fight. Kei yelled out as he charged his master. Kei attempted to attack Naruto with a diagonal slash, but Naruto parried the attack and responded with a series of slashes. Both of them locked blades again and then separated themselves by around 50 feet. Clutching his Shikudo in his right hand, Naruto then pointed his left index finger at where the manifested Zanpakuto was. Peido number 4. Byakuya, pale lightning, he said as he generated a concentrated lightning bolt at the tip of his finger which he then fired at Kei's. The materialized Zanpakuto easily got out of the way of the Kido spell. Naruto then flash-stepped in front of Kei's, with his Zanpakuto raised in the air with both hands grasping it. Sukawari, watermelon splitting, Naruto yelled out as he attempted to cut Kei's in half. The zanpakuto spirit simply dodged the attack with graceful ease. Naruto ended up hitting a boulder instead of his zanpakuto spirit, cutting it through cleanly like a hot knife through butter. As Naruto recovered from his attack, he looked up and saw that Kase was standing on top of a boulder with his katana resting on his shoulders and had the same smirk still planted on his face. "Is that all you got? Beginning level Kido spells and a few Zanjutsu techniques? I was expecting much more from you, Naruto," the zanpakuto said in an insulting tone. "Heh. I'm just getting warmed up," Naruto shouted as he charged at Kase, holding his shakudo in a two-handed grip. Minato, meanwhile, had taken position by a few dead trees and was now watching his sons fight with the manifested Kase no Moi. This should certainly be interesting, Minato thought to himself as he watched Naruto parry another one of the zanpakuto spirit's attacks. 11 hours later. Only half a day had passed until Naruto's 3-day Bankai training period and he was already forced onto the defensive. The young Uzumaki has a hard blocking Kaze's fierce and precise attacks to end the barrage of attacks Naruto and even tried to trap the manifested Zanpakuto in one of his mid-level Bakuto spells, but Kase managed to slip from his master's grasp, if only barely. What annoyed Naruto more than anything else was that Kase appeared to be simply toying with him. As he put a few yards between himself and the manifested spirit of his Zanpakuto Naruto's side, he had hoped that he wouldn't have to use this next move, but Kase had now forced his hand. Naruto sheathed his shakudo into his sash, this surprised of both Minato and Kase, though Kase only reacted by raising an eyebrow at this, and Minato didn't even visibly react at all. "That's it? Are you giving up already? I thought you were going to give it your all," Kase taunted. "I am not throwing in the towel just yet. I'm just going to try a new technique I've been working on," Naruto said in response. Before the manifested Zanpakuto could question him on this statement, Naruto flash stepped away. Kase started to look around where his master was only to stop when his master Flash stepped in front of him, the Zanpakuto by what he saw. Naruto's arms and legs were now covered by what appeared to be a shroud of his Reiatsu that both Minato and Kase noted to be similar to the Shunko technique Soifin used in her last match with Naruto, unlike the one the Captain 2nd Division used, however, Naruto's version took the form of orange flames instead of white lightning and, in Naruto's case, the orange flames Reiatsu shroud was visible. Before anyone realized what was happening, the blonde-haired lieutenant suddenly sucker punched Kase in the face and immediately followed up with a roundhouse kick to his stomach. The force of the punch stunned Kase, while the kick sent the manifested spirit flying into the air. Naruto continued with his assault by Flash stepping in front of Kase and delivering a barrage of punches to his head and torso. Before the Zanpakuto spirit could even react to getting hit, Naruto finished his barrage with a right uppercut. The force of the last punch sent Kase flying up into the air, his materialized form spinning like a top. Realizing that his Zanpakuto spirit was finished, Naruto Flash stepped above where Kase was as he held his right leg held straight in the air, intending to add insult to Kase's injury. Using all of his strength, Naruto slammed his leg down onto Kase's stomach, which caused the manifested Zanpakuto to fall like an anchor and crash into the ground, which creating a small crater in the process. When Kase regained his senses after several minutes, he found that Naruto was standing above him. The Shinigami had his foot pressed against Kase's chest, while the tip of his shakudo was now millimeters from manifested Zanpakuto's throat. Instead of his usual smirk, the manifested Kase now had a small grin on his face. "That was a pretty impressive technique you used there. I'm guessing that was Shunko, correct?" he asked. "Yeah, though it's a special version that I created myself after seeing Soifin using her version. It's so new that I haven't even named it yet. I even helped Soifin sum up with the name Shunko before I even began creating this version," Naruto explained. Kase slowly got up, wincing in pain. He straightened out his mesh shirt and started to dust off his Haori, surprising Naruto with his lack of severe injuries. As soon as he was finished dusting off his coat, Kase looked at Naruto and gave him a smile. "Congratulations, Naruto, you've actually managed to achieve Bankai in less than a day," Kase said in a mocking tone. It had been 5 days since Naruto had completed his Bankai training, and only a few days after the invasion had begun. Needless to say, the past few days were rather brutal for everyone within the walls of the Sirte. It had started with the arrival of 5 intruders in West Rukongai region just outside of the Sirte. The invaders consisted of 4 teenagers and, for some strange reason, a talking black cat. Naruto was surprised to learn that one of them was apparently the person who Rukia had lost her powers to. The intruders initially tried to enter through the western gate, but, after defeating the gatekeeper Jidam, were thwarted by Jin Ichimaru, the captain of the 3rd Division. Sometime later, the intruders, who were being referred to as Rioka by members of the Gotei 13, had successfully breached the Soul Shield membrane. Thanks to the aid of the remaining members of the Shiba clan, one of the 2 Shiba clansmen had decided to join the Ryoka. The group, however, had gotten separated upon entering the skies and landed in 4 different areas around the Sirte. That's when the trouble really began. Two of the Ryoka, Ichigo Kurosaki and Ganju Shiba, had encountered 3 members of the 11th Division. Ikao Madaram, Zabuza Mamachi, and Yumichika Asagawa, who were the 3rd, 4th, and 5th seated officers, respectively. Ikaku had taken on Ichigo, releasing his Shikai during the fight, but was defeated. Zabuza was Ichigo's next opponent. Like his captain, the former missing Kirinin wanted to fight the strongest of the Ryoka. However, he had decided to wait for them to come to him, and his patience had paid off. After a long and drawn-out fight, Ichigo had managed to barely defeat Zabuza. This was only the case, however, because Zabuza, unlike Ikaku, hadn't released his zanpakuto. After a game of cat and mouse, Ganju had managed to defeat Yumichika with powerful fireworks which the Shiba clan specialized in. Both Zabuza and Ikaku had suffered from grievous injuries. Yumichika, on the other hand, merely had his hair ruined by the fireworks, with the damage he suffered to his pride, image, and, such as it was, his sense of beauty. Further chaos spread into the Sarate when Ichigo defeated Renji Abarai, the lieutenant of the 6th Division and a good friend of Naruto and Rukia. Tensions came to an even greater boiling point when Aizen was found seemingly murdered in his office. While this loss was devastating to Momo Hinamori, the 4th-seated officer of the 5th Division, this had only confirmed the shinobi's suspicions when some of them realized that the body was only an illusion made by Aizen's zanpakuto. The former shinobi realized that this was a sign that Aizen was really beginning to make his move. At around this time one of the Ryoka was then defeated and captured by Shunsui Kamraku, the rather flamboyant captain of the 8th Division. The captured invader was an extremely tall and muscular man with dark skin, wavy brown hair that covered his eyes, and a rather large nose. His name was Yasutorich Adsato, and he possessed the ability to cover his right arm in some sort of spiritual armor, which he had used to crush most of the 8th Division before he was captured. Even the captains were not entirely untouched by the efforts of the Ryoka, however. Kenpachi Zaraki, the battle-loving captain of the 11th Division, had managed to track down Ichigo, which led to a long and drawn-out fight between the two. Though Ichigo had eventually managed to defeat Kenpachi, they were both left grievously wounded. Before anyone could get to the site of the battle, Ichigo was already gone thanks to the efforts of the black cat, named Yuruchi, to get him out of that place. The fact that the strongest of the Ryoka was still out there only caused further chaos within the home of the Shinigami. These events had taken a serious mental and physical toll on many of the Shinigami, even if they had yet to suffer any losses, especially Captain Yukitake and members of the 13th Division. Throughout this time, Naruto proved himself to be a very capable leader despite being untested, having never faced a crisis this large before, even when he was still alive. He managed to keep his division united in spite of the tensions tearing the Sarate apart from within, and even managing to avoid suffering losses within the 13th Division. All the while the young Uzumaki, along with the other former shinobi, prepared for what they saw as an inevitable confrontation with Aizen. Naruto, who had just returned to his barracks from a meeting with some of the other former ninja, was now visiting Captain Yukitake at the Ujin quarters, an area in the 13th Division barracks that Yukitake used to rest and recuperate from his frequent bouts of illness, although nobody asked what illness he suffered from, nor could anyone, even 4th Division, figure out. The white-haired captain was currently trimming a bonsai, although he was doing a rather poor job as usual, while Naruto sat across from him. He was enjoying a small snack that consisted of a small plate of Mitarashi dango and a cup of green tea. "No offense, Captain, but you're not particularly good at trimming bonsai trees." Naruto chided as he bit off 2 of the dango and chewed it. Yukitake momentarily stopped trimming the small tree and looked up at his lieutenant. "I am aware of that, Naruto-san. I trim these bonsai for the simple enjoyment of it," Yukitake said as he went back to his trimming. Naruto merely sighed as he took a sip of his green tea. "Anyways, I'm really disappointed that I haven't run into any of the Ryoka yet. I really want to fight one of them," Naruto said, to which Yukitake gave him a slight smile. "I think Captain Zaraki's love for battle has begun to rub off on you," Yukitake said jokingly. Naruto frowned in annoyance at this comment. He had gained a reputation among the Gotei 13 as being one of its most powerful members for being able to take on and defeat Kenpachi in a fight. The battle-loving captain wanted to fight the blonde-haired lieutenant because of the immense Ryatsu Naruto possessed. Naruto, around a year after becoming a lieutenant, eventually relented and defeated Kenpachi in a sword fight that lasted only half an hour. Kenpachi now considered Naruto as an equal and an honorary member of the 11th Division for defeating him. He would occasionally challenge Naruto to a fight, and Naruto would comply if only to get Kenpachi off his back for some time. "At least I'm not stupid enough to go chasing after them and get lost," Naruto said snidely, referring to the fact that Kenpachi had run around for almost a day until he found Ichigo. He was about to finish off his snack when he and Yukitake felt a sudden surge in Ryatsu. Naruto dropped the stick of dango he held in his hand and looked at Yukitake. "Did you feel that, Captain?" the young lieutenant asked. Yes, and I believe it's coming from the Senzakik, Yukitake replied. Naruto turned to face the tower as he asked his captain another question. Should we check it out? Yes, we definitely should, Naruto-san, Yukitake replied. The captain and his lieutenant Flash stepped towards the Senzakik. They intended to find out who or what was emitting the surge they felt. Senzakik, Sirite, Soul Society. A few minutes later. When Naruto and Yukitake finally reached the Senzakik, a very unpleasant sight met them. A large man was sprawled out on the bridge, his body covered in several lacerations. A few feet away from the man was the captain of the 6th Division, Byakuya Kichiki. He was recognizable with his slate gray eyes, long black hair, which held 3 white hairpieces, a pure white scarf wrapped around his neck, and the emotionless express he carried on his face. Near the entrance of the Shishinom was Rukia Kichiki, a short petite woman with violet eyes and short black hair. Behind her was a wimpy-looking person that Naruto recognized as Hanaderm Yamada, the 7th-seated officer of the 4th Division, and a guy he often protected from bullying members of the 11th Division. What shocked both Naruto and Yukitake was that Byakuya had released his zanpakuto, Senbonsakura, 1000 cherry blossoms. He held the hilt of his sword in his right hand, and what appeared to be 1000 cherry blossom petals scattered in the air surrounding him. Before Byakuya could direct his attack to where Rukia and Hanaderm stood, Yukitake rushed forward and firmly grasped Byakuya's right arm. He then let out a sigh of relief. Phew, close one. Pretty dangerous. Why don't we leave it at that, Captain Kichiki, Yukitake suggested. Captain Yukitake Naruto, Rukia said as she stood there in complete shock. Yukitake and Naruto then decided to acknowledge Rukia, both in a friendly manner. Hey there, Rukia. It's good to see you. Are you alright? Yukitake asked. Hello, Rukia-chan. Naruto said in warm tone similar to Yukitake's. Byakuya turned his attention away from his sister-in-law adopted sister and focused his attention to the 13th Division captain and lieutenant. Captain Yukitake and Lieutenant Uzumaki. What are you two doing here? The man asked with his usual indifference. Well, I could ask you the same thing. After all, releasing a zanpakuto in a place like this is a first-class offense, even if it is to repel Rioka. What were you thinking, Kichiki? Yukitake questioned. The wartime exemption allows the unrestricted use of a Shinigami zanpakuto. Byakuya replied in his stoic manner. This took Yukitake a bit by surprise. War exemption? Has the Rioka infiltration gotten that bad? Was it a Rioka that killed Aizen? If it's gotten that bad, then why the hell haven't I encountered one of them? More importantly, Byakuya, since when does that give you the right to attack a member of our division, especially when she's your sister, damn it? Naruto shouted out in an irritated tone. Before anyone could reply to Naruto's complaint, another surge in Reiatsu was felt. This took everyone on the bridge by surprise, as the Reiatsu was extremely large. Yukitake then decided to voice everyone's concern. What spiritual pressure is this? Clearly, it's at the level of a captain, and it feels quite similar to Naruto-san's. But I don't recognize it at all, Yukitake exclaimed, taking the words that were about to come out of Naruto's mouth. Suddenly, a blur shot up from under the bridge and straight into the sky. It appeared to be a figure holding on to what seemed to be a large bat-like wing. Everyone on the bridge was startled, except for Byakuya, who kept his stoic expression. The figure descended from the sky and landed right in front of Rukia. The figure was revealed as a teenage boy who appeared to be around Naruto's age. He was fairly tall, being a few inches taller than Naruto, with a lean build. He possessed spiky orange hair, brown eyes, and peach skin. His face seemed to be set in a near-permanent scowl. He was wearing a standard Shinigami shihakusho with a red rosary-like strap across his chest. His kozus was open, revealing a heavily bandaged torso with a bit of blood seeping from it. On his back was a very large sword with a blade wrapped in cloth. It was shaped like an oversized kitchen knife. The sword possessed no hilt tsuba and had a cloth-wrapped tang. The boy was holding on to what appeared to be a bone-like wand with a bird's skull at one end. A tentacle-like appendage extended from one end of the wand and was wrapped around the boy's arm, while a bat-like wing protruded from the skull at the other end. The bat wing suddenly retracted into the bird's skull, and the tentacle went limp around the boy's arm. Rukia was shocked at the revelation of the teenager and could only utter one word. Ichigo, Rukia said in shock. The now-named Ichigo promptly ignored Rukia and walked over to Hanaderm and asked if he was okay. When he confirmed that he was, Ichigo then walked over to Rukia and faced her. Rukia, I've come here to rescue you, he stated bluntly. Rather than being relieved or thankful, Rukia looked extremely hurt, with tears beginning to form in her eyes. Ichigo was just confused by this. What kind of look is that? I've come here to save you. You could at least try to act like you're happy. Ichigo said in an almost annoyed manner. Rukia continued to stare at him with tear-filled eyes, before finally speaking a hurt-filled tearful voice. You fool, Ichigo. I told you to never to come after me. I told you I'd never forgive you if you did. Now you're all cut up and there is worse yet to come. She claimed. This took everyone, minus Byakuya, by surprise, especially Naruto. Ichigo then looked over to where Ganju's wounded body was and was surprised to see that Naruto was already at his side, applying his healing Kido to some of Ganju's more serious wounds. Ichigo then turned, facing the direction of the two captains. That may be so. You can yell about me coming here some other time. Right now, I have to defeat him, Ichigo said as he focused his attention on Byakuya, who looked at the orange-haired Shinigami with an indifferent and uninterested look. Ichigo, Rukia said with a hint of concern in her voice. What? Don't tell me you think I'd actually give up after coming all this way, Ichigo said. It's just, Rukia began to say before Ichigo cut her off. Because I won't. Don't even ask me. I came here to save you and that's what I'm gonna do. Oh, and from now on, I'm ignoring all of your opinions. You're coming with me whenever you want to or not, damn it. He said before he then pointed an accusing finger at Rukia. You got that? Huh? I'm the rescuer here and you just shut up. Rukia's hurtful look was now gone and now was replaced by a look that was somewhere between shocked and dumbfounded. Her jaw was dropped and her eyes were now open in a comedic fashion. Naruto realized what was about to happen as Rukia finally said something. What would you say? Who do you think you are, ordering me around like that? The rescuer isn't supposed to ignore the rescuee. Yeah? And what kind of rescuee complains about the rescue? Why don't you go sit down and tremble in fear while shouting save me? Save me? Like you're supposed to. Ugh, I don't need to be saved. And I do not tremble. Ichigo responded to Rukia's outrage by making a childish face at her. Everyone on the bridge was confused by the two's argument with the exception of Naruto, who was trying to suppress a snicker. He then approached Captain Yukitake and nudged him with his elbow. They look like they're happy to see each other, don't you think, Captain? He asked jokingly. Yukitake responded with a simple shrug of his shoulders. Yukitake was still taken aback by the fact that this Ryoka was disturbingly similar to Kane Shiba, his previous lieutenant. He had initially picked Naruto to be his lieutenant because he saw a great deal of Kane in him, and he could tell that this kid was similar to both Kane and Naruto in more ways than one. The agreeing look in Naruto's eyes only confirmed that he was thinking along similar lines as the 13th Division captain questioned Byakuya. Byakuya, what do you know of this man? He asked the 6th Division captain. Byakuya then turned to face Yukitake with the same look of disinterest on his face. I know enough. He has no relation to the man who you are thinking about. This one here is nothing. Nothing but a Ryoka that I shall destroy. This will end and his trifling invasion will be over, Byakuya said before he heard Naruto scoff at his claim. If this Ichigo guy was nothing, then he wouldn't have captain-level Reiatsu. Nor would he be able to break through the soul shield membrane, kick the asses of your lieutenant and two seated officers of the 11th Division, or be able to take on Kenpachi-san, who has monstrous Reiatsu, and if he was nothing, how come he's still alive after you claimed that you killed him? Naruto pointed out in a matter-of-fact manner. Byakuya turned and faced the blonde-haired Shinigami. He was annoyed by Naruto's retort, despite being fully aware of just how accurate the lieutenant's claims were, but still kept up his emotionless expression. What are you saying, Lieutenant Uzumaki? Byakuya asked. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't underestimate your opponents. This Ichigo guy has gotten a hell of a lot stronger since the last time you saw him. And it looks like he's extremely determined to rescue Rukia, Naruto pointed out. Byakuya chose to ignore Naruto's comment and proceeded to walk towards Ichigo, who was doing the same. Ichigo had his right hand gripped on the giant sword's impromptu hilt. Look at you, taking everything so slow and casual. All that time Rukia and I were talking, you could have been attacking, but you just stood there, Ichigo retorted. Who do you think you're talking to? Do you suppose I need an opening to come after the likes of you? You should know better than to talk so big, boy, Byakuya replied rather coldly. But Kami, this Byakuya guy is arrogant. Kurama observed, finally deciding to comment on the events unfolding before his host's eyes. And the last horse finally crosses the line, so when did you figure that out? Kei's no moi said in a mocking tone. What did you say? Kurama asked in an irritated tone. Will the two of you shut the hell up? Naruto screamed mentally at his two tenants. Fine. But I have a feeling that Byakuya is about to get a rude awakening, in any case. Byakuya then released his Reiatsu in an attempt to intimidate Ichigo. Rukia and Hanaderm, who had considerably smaller levels of Reiatsu when compared to Byakuya, were severely weakened by it. Ichigo, on the other hand, was completely unaffected by it and draw his sword out confidently. This surprised Byakuya, though his face didn't show it. You must have improved a great deal indeed to be unaffected by my Reiatsu. I don't know how you've managed to regain the powers of a Shinigami, but I can tell you that you should have stayed peacefully in the world of the living. Instead, you made the mistake of coming here to throw away the life I mercifully spared, Byakuya said. I'm not going to be throwing it away. I'm going to beat you and leave. Ichigo said, his resolve unwavering. I thought I warned you about talking so big, Byakuya said as he suddenly stepped away. Byakuya appeared behind Ichigo, preparing to stab him in the back. Ichigo was able to block this move with the large blade of his sword, however, much to Byakuya's surprise. I saw your every step, Byakuya Kichiki. Ichigo said in a rather smug tone. Ichigo then parried the attack and slashed at Byakuya, who promptly blocked it. Both blades separated and the two then created some distance between them. Ichigo now gripped his sword with both hands. Well, what do you think, Kichiki? Your movement is now visible to me, Ichigo boasted. Don't confuse skill with a little luck, you damned fool, Byakuya replied, unimpressed with the young Kurosaki's improvements. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose in response to Byakuya's comment. From what Naruto observed, Ichigo was capable of being a captain in the Gotei 13, just from the levels of his Reiatsu. And he was able to stand his ground against one of the toughest fighters that the Soul Society had to offer, An. For those who don't know, I'm referring to Kenpachi. In his mind, Naruto thought that Ichigo stood on equal footing with the 6th Division captain. Byakuya was just too prideful to acknowledge this. Ichigo charged at Byakuya again, who then stepped out of the way. He attempted to attack Ichigo from behind again, but once again, Ichigo blocked this. The two continued to fight in a series of attacks, parries, and counter-attacks, while everyone else on the bridge watched in amazement. Naruto was particularly impressed by Ichigo's skill and fighting style. Now that I've seen him in action, I have to admit that Ichigo is pretty good. He still has a long way to go, though. Naruto thought to himself as both Ichigo and Byakuya traded blows and landed facing each other a few feet away. Byakuya then held his zanpakuto in front of him. Very well. It is obvious that you have improved even more than I've thought possible. Before you become too full of yourself, I shall show you the difference between us. The gap in power that you could never fill, not even if you had 1,000 years of training, Byakuya said. Before he could do anything else, however, a massive amount of Reiatsu was unleashed just as a loud voice was heard. For Kami's sake, I've had it up to here with your arrogance, Byakuya. I told you not to underestimate him, but you didn't listen. Ichigo, kick this stuck-up bastard's ass. I'll even cheer you on. Ichigo and Byakuya both turned to the source of the outburst. Naruto was now panting from releasing his pent-up irritation at the 6th Division captain, though he looked as though he still had flames of death in his eyes. Byakuya had a look on his face that could best be described as annoyed with a hint of anger. Ichigo, on the other hand, was dumbfounded and taken back by the blonde lieutenant's outburst. Have we met before? Ichigo asked, to which Naruto sighed. No, we haven't, Naruto replied. Before Naruto and Ichigo could continue their conversation or even give proper introductions, a long strip of white cloth wrapped around the blade of Senbonzakura. A figure landed near Byakuya, holding the strip in her hand. It was a dark-skinned woman with a slender figure, golden eyes, and long purple hair kept up in a ponytail. She wore an orange overshirt with 2 white straps on each shoulder, a black undershirt, black stretch pants, brown shoes, and a beige sash around her waist. Everyone was surprised by the arrival of this person, especially Byakuya. Naruto now had a comically shocked expression on his face with his jaw hanging open. It's been a long time, hasn't it, Byakuya? The woman asked. Who the hell are you? Naruto shouted out as he pointed an accusing finger at the woman. Where are my manners? My name is Uruchi Shimen, the now named Uruchi said. Uruchi, so you're that person that Captain Soifon obsesses over. I have to admit she's a good sparring partner, but her personality leaves a lot to be desired, Naruto said. And I can see why she'd obsess over her, Naruto thought to himself as he discreetly studied Uruchi's athletic yet curvaceous body. I haven't seen your face in a while. You've been in exile for over 100 years. We thought that you were dead, Byakuya said in a condescending tone. Uruchi, you came here to rescue me. I appreciate that, but I need you to step aside so I can beat this guy. Blondie over there said he'd even cheer me on, Ichigo said. To Kurosaki's surprise, Naruto began to glare at him. What did you call me? Naruto shouted, suddenly simmering with anger. Before Ichigo could respond, however, Uruchi jabbed her hand into his open wound. He made a few groans of pain before suddenly passing out. Uruchi then retracted her hand. Everyone was taken aback by this action, with Naruto being at a particular loss for words. Yukitake was the first to speak up. You've injected him with a drug, haven't you? A powerful anesthetic, which you have forced directly into his body to save him. What do you intend to do with him, Uruchi-san? Yukitake asked. He didn't receive an answer as Byakuya interrupted their conversation. Don't waste your time trying to help him. Neither of you will ever escape, Byakuya claimed. Just listen to you, talking like such a big shot now. And yet I don't believe you have ever beaten me in a game of tag, Uruchi said with a smirk on her face. Shall we give it another try? Byakuya asked as he stepped towards his former mentor. Yuruchi intercepted this and suddenly appeared behind him. He attempted to slash them with Sabanzakura, but she evaded him. Both Shunpo masters flash-stepped towards each other. Byakuya was surprised by Yuruchi's speed, who now appeared on the other side of the bridge. But as soon as her feet touched the ground, Byakuya appeared besides her, his expression completely unchanged. "Did you really think you could win with a Shunpo that slow?" he asked mockingly as he slashed her with his zanpakuto. His emotionless face changed when he realized that Yuruchi had disappeared, leaving only a few pieces of tattered orange cloth behind. She then reappeared, crouched on Byakuya's arm. "Did you really think you could capture me with a Shunpo that predictable?" she teased. As Naruto observed the two Shunpo masters' game, a small smile appeared on his face. This reminded him of the games of tag he would play with his father. Minato possessed a mastery of Shunpo that was easily on par with Yuruchi's, while he had a mastery of Shunpo that, according to many of the Shinigami, rivaled Byakuya's, and he could tell how this was going to end. Naruto's guess was proven right when Yuruchi flash-stepped off of Byakuya's arm and reappeared on top of the tower. 3 days. I shall make this boy stronger than you in 3 days. Until then, consider the fight between you two postponed. Feel free to give chase, but remember this. Yuruchi Shimin isn't about to be caught by the likes of you," Yuruchi claimed. She then flash-stepped away from the sensei kick, leaving several afterimages behind her, making any pursuit of her and the unconscious Kurosaki impossible. Naruto was left pondering on Yuruchi's statement. "For Rukia-chan's sake, I hope you do make Ichigo stronger, especially since I have to deal with Aizen as well," he thought to himself. As Naruto called over the 2/3 seated officers of his division to deal with the man he had healed as well as Rukia and Hinataro, the young Uzumaki realized that Ichigo may prove to be a valuable ally later on, as Aizen's plan continued to be in motion. It had been 3 days since the confrontation between Ichigo and Byakuya in the sensei kick. Ichigo had not been seen anywhere during that time, and most of the remaining Rioka had been captured. What came as a shock to everyone, however, was that it was announced that Rukia's execution had been rescheduled to the following day. The shinobi took this as a sign to move out and confront Aizen. They were now standing outside the headquarters of the Central 46, the main governing of the Soul Society. All of them were dressed in shihakushos, as with Naruto, however, the ones Zabuza and Kushina wore had a few modification. Kushina had a crimson obi sash in place of the standard one. Zabuza's was drastically different and looked similar to Shikei Hasagi's. The Kozo'd was slightly form-fitting and had its sleeves torn off, giving it the appearance of a sleeveless shirt. He also had on light grey wrist warmers and black sandals. A sapphire blue sash was across his chest, in which he held his zanpakuto. It took the form of an adachi with a dark blue hilt and a skull-shaped tsuba. After some time, Zabuza decided to break the silence and ask Naruto what was on everyone's minds. "So Naruto, why are you so damn sure that that bastard Aizen is hiding out in the Shinigami of all places?" Naruto closed his eyes as he began to tell his fellow Shinigami his explanation. "When you think about it, Zabuza-san, it's actually pretty obvious. The Shinigami is off limits to all Shinigami, despite their rank or their civilian status. The only people allowed in are the members of the Central 46. Aizen probably went here after he pulled off his murder, since this is the last place anyone would look for him. I have to say that I'm rather disappointed. I'd expected better from him," the Uzumaki explained away. "That is very perceptive of you, Naruto-kun," Fugaku commented. The former head of the Uchiha clan and his wife had a lot respect for the blonde Shinigami, especially since he had stopped his youngest son from making a great mistake. During his time in the Soul Society, Fugaku had come to regret the decisions he had made concerning the coup d'etat the Uchiha clan attempted. He was so focused on gaining control of Konoha, and he allowed the mysterious masked man to gain so much influence over him that he didn't look at the bigger picture until it was too late. At the time, he didn't realize that his coup would have not only destroyed Konoha and engulfed the land of fire and war, but he would have lost several of his fellow clansmen, including the potential loss of his 2 sons. After some in the Soul Society, he had decided to join the Gotei 13 as a way of penance. Minato gave his son a look and immediately knew something was troubling him. On the outside, Naruto appeared to be calm and collected. On the inside, however, he was simmering with anger. Minato knew was the cause of Naruto's anger and decided to ask him about it. "Are you still mad about what happened yesterday?" Minato asked. Mad doesn't describe how angry I am right now. And I intend to take out most of my anger on Aizen," Naruto replied as he tried not to let his anger seep into his voice. What Minato was referring to was the argument he and Yukitake had with Byakuya the previous day. Flashback. 6th Division Barracks, Sirite, Soul Society. 1 day earlier. Byakuya was currently walking outside the 6th Division Barracks with his usual air of indifference. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted when he heard 2 different sets of footsteps approaching from behind him. He then heard somebody call out his name. He casually turned around to see both Yukitake and Naruto approaching him. Yukitake had a concerned look on his face, while Naruto looked like he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Byakuya, the date of Rukia's execution has been moved," Yukitake yelled. "Yes, it has been moved to tomorrow," Byakuya stated in a calm and collected voice. Yukitake then hesitantly asked his next question. "What are you going to about it?" "Why should I do anything about it?" he replied uncaringly. His apathy towards his sister's impending death shocked Yukitake. Naruto, on the other, growled at this and clenched his fist tightly. "Are you fucking serious?" Naruto hissed. "The date has been set. If that is the decision and the order, then there's nothing to do but to let it happen. Do not bother me again with such trivial matters," Byakuya said coldly as he began to walk off. A still shocked Yukitake walked forward and grasped Byakuya's shoulder. "Now wait just a minute. This isn't some stranger we're talking about, this is your own sister. If nobody does anything about it, she's likely to die," Yukitake pleaded. All the stress and excitement proved to be much for the 13th Division captain, as he suddenly stepped back and went into another coughing fit. A visibly concerned Naruto rushed over to his captain's side. He then glared at Byakuya, who gave both of them a distant look. "You should be careful. You'll only shorten your life, Yukitake. You've already lost one of your officers, I don't think losing another would really matter." Naruto felt a rise in his anger when Byakuya had callously mentioned Kain's death, as if it were nothing. The only time he felt this angry before was when Neji had assaulted Hinata both physically and psychologically during the Chunin exam preliminaries. Byakuya then glanced at Yukitake before he said something that, as those who knew Naruto well, was forbidden territory. "In any case, Rukia is a member of my house. Whenever she lives or dies is none of your business," Byakuya said coldly as he began to walk away. Byakuya was forced to stop, however, he felt a hand suddenly grab his shoulder and forced him around. He was now face to face with Naruto, whose teeth were bared and eyes were full of rage. Before Byakuya could react, Naruto grabbed Byakuya by his neck, pushed the captain into wall, and then, if his anger wasn't obvious enough, he punched him in the gut, clearly getting the noble's attention. "You arrogant stuck-up piece of shit. Rukia is one of my subordinates. She's like a sister to me, so it's my concern if she lives or dies, you son of a bitch." The Uzumaki roared, shocking Yukitake and Byakuya and scaring everyone else to death. The 6th Division captain's eyes widened due to the amount of anger and malice seething through Naruto's voice. Several unseated officers of the 6th Division all got ready to draw their zanpakutos, but Byakuya, in either shock or fear, motioned them to stand down. "Listen and listen well, Byakuya. I'm about to tell you an important lesson that I learned from my sensei back in the Shinobi World. He may not have taught me much, but I hold this lesson close to my heart," he sighs. "Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. You may be part of the nobility, but the way I see it, you're lower than scum. If you won't do anything to save Rukia's life, then I will," Naruto explained. Naruto then let go of Byakuya and walked away, leaving him to ponder in his thoughts. He helped Yukitake up and together they left the barracks before the Uzumaki decided to try to kill Byakuya. Then flashback. Outside the Central 46 compound, Sirite, Soul Society. Current time. Naruto grimaced at the thought of what happened yesterday. He had had his disagreements with the head of the Kichiki clan before, but as of now he had nothing but hate for him. He broke out of his thoughts and suddenly spoke to his fellow shinobi Shinigami. "I think we've wasted enough time already. We should get a move on before Aizen figures out that he's been discovered," Naruto warned. They all nodded and all rushed off into the compound, all ready to confront the master of deception. Central 46 compound, Sirite, Soul Society. Several minutes later. "Freakin' stairs," Naruto muttered as he took in large gulps of air. He and the rest of the shinobi Shinigami had finally reached the end of the seemingly endless staircase that led deep into the Central 46 compound and were now trying to catch their breath due to the fact that they had been running. When they finally neared the assembly hall where the 40 sages and 6 judges that comprised the Central 46 held their meetings, they surprised at how quiet it was. As they finally recovered from their panting, Naruto and Minato noticed 2 figures walking out of the assembly hall. They were Retsu Anohana and Aizen Katetsu, the captain and lieutenant of the 4th Division. Anohana was a youthful woman with blue eyes and long black hair kept in a large braid in front. She wore a standard shihakusho with a long-sleeved captain's haori. Like Kushina, she wore an obi sash in place of the standard white one. Aizen was a young-looking woman with gray eyes and long, messy silver hair, with shoulder-length strands on the right side of her face that were stylized as 2 thin braids. She also wore a shihakusho with a lieutenant's badge on her left arm, and she also had on 2 red, dangling earrings. "Captain Anohana, I'm surprised that you're down here," Naruto said as he caught the 4th Division captain's attention. She and Aizen turned to where the shinobi were at, and she gave the blonde lieutenant a friendly smile. I could say the same thing to you, Naruto-kun. I was surprised that Lieutenant Yuki didn't show up to the execution with Captain Soifun, Unohana said in her usual polite nature. Haku decided to make his presence known and spoke up. I told Soifun-sama that I had some business to take care of. She decided on taking Lumita with her instead, Haku explained, cringing at the mention of his subordinate. Like his captain and almost everybody else in the second division, he loathed Marichio Lumita for many reasons. He was exceedingly arrogant, cowardly, loud, sluggish, vain, elitist, and was condescending to the poorer members of the Gotei 13. What annoyed both Haku and Soifun was that he claimed his obesity was a sign of his good living and wealth, while in reality, it was a sign of overeating, poor dieting, and receiving little to no exercise. Lumita had served as Soifun's lieutenant for some time, until Haku had arrived to the Soul Society and joined the Gotei 13. Soifun took an immediate liking to the boy and made him her new lieutenant while she demoted Lumita to the position of third-seated officer. This was because Haku was a kind soul and had impressed Soifun with his knowledge of poisons and the use of senbon needles. Not to mention that Haku had a shunpo hat rivaled Soifun's and was much faster than Lumita's. I heard that Carrot Top Ryoka pummeled through that Lardus as if he were nothing. I should have been there to see it myself, Zabuza commented. Everyone else ignored the former Kirinin's comment, though the rest shinobi silently agreed with him as Minato approached Unohana. Unohana-san, we are here because we suspect that Aizen-san is hiding here. My fellow shinobi and I have been suspicious of him ever since we all joined the Gotei 13. Naruto here was the one to convince us to take action. I have also been suspicious of Captain Aizen, Minato-san. However, I suspected him of foul play ever since I performed the autopsy on his body. Quick question. Why isn't the Central 46 active? Are they our break or something? Naruto asked. Unohana's expression quickly turned grim as she pointed them to the assembly hall, signaling them to see for themselves. As they approached and entered the assembly hall, they were completely shocked at what they saw. The 40 sages and 6 judges had been slaughtered like cattle, their lifeless and bloodied bodies scattered across the room. This reminded Fugaku and Mikoto of the night of their deaths, where Itachi had murdered their fellow clansmen. For Zabuza, it was an all too familiar sight, as he had killed every other student in his academy class to gain his position as a member of the 7 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. Naruto approached one of the blood-stained desks and ran his finger over the dried blood. A flake of the blood broke off and he ground it into dust with his index finger and thumb. He then turned and made his assessment to everyone present in the room. Judging from the dried blood, I say that they've been dead for at least a couple of days, Naruto deduced. How is that possible? The headquarters has been under lockdown ever since Lieutenant Abarai was defeated, Fugaku questioned as he came out of his shock. Before anybody could answer his question, they all felt a rather large surge in Riatsu coming from the Seidenkyurin. The shinobi, Unohana and Aizen all rushed from the assembly hall to Seidenkyurin and were surprised at what they saw. Standing near one of the towers in the room was Sosuke Aizen and Jin Ichimaru. Aizen possessed the appearance of a scholar with his wavy brown hair and square glasses. He had a warm look on his face, but Naruto could obviously tell that it was a front. He wore a Shinigami shihakusho with a long-sleeved captain's haori. Jin was anything but normal. He had silver hair with a purple tint. His eyes were narrowed to slits and he had a fox-like grin on his face. He also wore a shihakusho with a sleeveless captain's haori. Near Aizen was the collapsed form of Tsushima Hitsugaya, the captain of the 10th division. He was rather short and could easily be mistaken for a child, with turquoise eyes and short spiky white hair. It appeared that he had released his zanpakuto, as the area surrounding him was covered in a layer of ice. However, what really took Naruto by surprise was that Momo Hinamori, who had a stab wound in her stomach, was near the entrance of one of the towers, lying in a small puddle of her own blood. This only increased the considerable amount of anger that Naruto had inside him. He knew that Momo admired Aizen and saw him as a father figure. To see that he had stabbed her and tossed her aside like trash would have left her devastated. Minato then decided to break the silence. "Hello, Aizen-san," he said in his polite manner. Aizen simply smiled at this. "I'm surprised that you're still referred to me with an honorific, especially after I just mortally wounded one of your subordinates. However, I find it insulting that you don't address me as captain. Actually, truth be told, my husband and I never saw you as our captain. We were always suspicious of you," Kushina said as she directed a small amount of killing in Aizen's direction. Unohana then took her turn to speak. "Captain Aizen, no, that's wrong. After what I've witnessed it wouldn't be right to call you captain. You deserve the title of high traitor." "Well, hello Captain Unohana. I have to admit that your arrival is not completely unexpected. I knew you'd figure out that I was staying here. However, the shinobi arriving here was a surprise. It was the only logical explanation. The Seidenkyurin was declared completely off limits to everyone. It was the perfect place to carry out the plans you had in mind. You needed to hide away in complete isolation after you staged your own death with that exquisitely deigned corpse doll. And what better place to hide in the Sirte than in the place we'd least expect to find you? At least, that was your plan, wasn't it? A smirk on Aizen's face grew as he secretly admired Unohana's perceptiveness and attention to detail. Not quite. The majority of what you said is true, but you did make two mistakes. First of all, I have no need to hide from anyone. That's not why I came here for. And secondly, I'll take things from here, Aizen team, Naruto said as he interrupted Aizen's grand revelation. The 5th Division captain raised an eyebrow at this, as the blonde Shinigami began his explanation to Unohana. Aizen didn't use a corpse doll, Captain Unohana. He simply used the Shikai ability of his Zanpakuto, Kimka Sagetsu, Mirror Flower, Water Moon. It's a very powerful illusion Kidm-type Zanpakuto. Its Shikai ability allows the wielder to control the 5 senses to the point where it makes a target misinterpret someone else's form, shape, mass, feel, smell, and everything else about it to be that of something else. After seeing the Shikai release just once, the person who saw it will be under the illusion as long as they live, or at least until Aizen turns off the hypnosis. It's not that much different from a simple gain jutsu, Fugaku added as Aizen took all of this in. On the outside, the traitor kept a cool and calm expression. However, he was panicking on the inside. He had kept the Gotei 13 under an illusion for over 100 years, and nobody had suspected a thing. However, a teenager with an unhealthy craving for ramen noodles had figured out his Zanpakuto's ability with very little effort, and the boy had been in the Soul Society for only 3 years. Aizen was also angered by that fact that this kid had ruined his grand revelation. We've also suspected that Jin and Kanem have been your co-collaborators. Kanem is blind, thus he wouldn't be affected by your hypnosis. As for Jin, I've never fully trusted him, Naruto said as he gave the grinning captain a distrustful look. You've always been shifty to me, you fox-faced bastard. Well, aren't you the pot calling the kettle black, Jin commented, chuckling at how the lieutenant was oblivious to the irony of what he just said. Inside of Naruto's mind, Kurama let out a groan of annoyance, while Kei's Nomwa snickered to himself. That was a very nice explanation, Naruto, Minato commented as he turned towards Aizen. I'm sorry Aizen-san, but I'm afraid we'll have to stop you. You're under arrest for the crimes of murdering the members of the Central 46, conspiracy to commit treason, attacking a captain of the Gotei 13, and obstruction of justice in the case of Rukia Kichiki, Minato declared. Actually, I don't think I'll be having a trial at all, Aizen said as he pointed his right index and middle finger at the group. Suddenly, blue spiritual energy started to generate around his 2 fingers. Peido number 73. Smren Samkatsui, Twin Lotus Blue Fire, crashed down, Aizen said as he made a pushing motion with both of his palms. 2 torrents of blue energy came at the shinobi. However, Haku had taken the initiative and drew his Zanpakuto out, a tent with a sky blue hilt and a tsuba shaped like a snowflake. He then said its release command. Freeze, Yukinokism, Snow Crystal, Haku yelled as a white-blue energy enveloped the tent and expanded. When it ended, it now took on the form of a Kodachi with a blade that appeared to be made out of ice. Haku then made a horizontal slash at the air as he called out one of his Zanpakuto's abilities. Basish plus Rudo, Ice Shield. Suddenly, a thick layer of frost appeared on the ground in front of them. The frost then shot up and took the form of a large wall of ice. It was sturdy enough to block Aizen's powerful Kido spell. When the spell dispersed, both Aizen and Zabuza rushed towards the 2 traitors, with their blades drawn. However, they now saw that Jin was kneeling on the ground, with an extremely long white strip of cloth coming from his sleeve. Said strip was spinning around him and Aizen like a cyclone. Senten Hakuja, 1000-coil white snake, Jin said as the strip tightened and the 2 captains disappeared. Zabuza cursed under his breath and slammed his fist into one of the walls. Unohana approached Mshurm's body and began to examine it. He's still alive, but he is barely hanging on. I'll need to perform emergency surgery on him immediately if he is to survive. Mikoto-san, please assist me in the procedure. Aizen, I need you to inform all captains, lieutenants, and seated officers of the Gotei 13, along with the Rioka about Aizen's treachery. Both women nodded as Mikoto ran over to help her, as she was very skilled with healing Kidos, with Mshurm, while Aizen began the incantation for a Kidm spell called Tantikra, Heavenly Rickshaws and Silken Air. Naruto faced his father and began to speak. Dad, I have feeling that Aizen is currently at Sankyoku Hill. I'm going to get a head start and try to stop him. Meet me there when you're done here, Naruto said as Minato gave his son a small nod. He felt a bit concerned about his son rushing off into battle, but he knew Naruto was more than capable of handling Aizen. Alright, but just be careful. I don't know how Kushina would react if Aizen harmed you, Minato chided, knowing how his wife's temper was when it came to anything happening to their son. Naruto flashed Minato a smile before he exited the Sankurin and ran up the excessively long flight of stairs. Once he had exited the compound, he suddenly stopped. He then unsheathed his zanpakuto and held it in front of him in a two-handed grip. He had been itching to try out one of his Bankai abilities, and he decided that now would be a great time to use one of them. Bankai. He yelled out as he was engulfed in a large column of orange Ryatsu, which was accompanied by a large gust of wind. When the column and wind dissipated, Naruto had undergone a slight change. His hair was longer and a bit shaggier, and it now ended at the back of his neck. He now wore the Haori and mesh undershirt that K's no Mwa wore, along with a pair of black arm guards and black fingerless gloves. In his right hand, he held the straight blade katana that K's used during his Bankai training. Mzifk no Mai, Fury of the Four Cardinal Winds, Naruto said as he began to channel wind through the katana's blade. The wind then moved from the blade and began to cover his entire body. This was one of his Bankai abilities, Senku Purinto, Whirlwind Sprint. This allowed him to accelerate at high velocities, allowing him to move as fast as the wind. With his wind-enhanced speed, Naruto then made a mad dash to Zanpakuto Hill, intending on stopping Aizen from escaping and hurting his friends even further. When Naruto finally arrived at the base of Zanpakuto Hill, he deactivated his Senku Purinto and started running at the fastest pace he could run. When he finally got there, he momentarily stopped and surveyed the damage. Both Renji and Ichigo were there, both of them were on the floor, and neither of them were in good shape. Renji's right arm had several lacerations on it, and he had a large gash on his left shoulder. Ichigo had a puncture wound on his right shoulder blade, a vertical cut on each of his shoulders, and he had a large cut on his midriff. Naruto also noticed the change in Ichigo's attire and weapon. A long-sleeved ankle-length black coat with red lining replaced his shakusho. It closed up at his chest, and the hemline of the coat was ragged. In his right hand was a pure black datum sword. The crossguard had 4 prongs bent out in the shape of a manji, and a broken-off chain was attached to the base of the hilt. From both the appearance of his blade, along with attire, Naruto assumed that this was Ichigo's Bankai. What Naruto saw next left him in complete shock. Byakuya, of all people, was kneeling on the ground, breathing heavily. He had a stab wound on his torso, and blood stained his captain's Haori. Standing next to him was Rukia, who was visibly concerned about the well-being of her adoptive brother-in-law. It didn't take Naruto even 3 minutes to realize that the Byakuya had taken an attack that was meant for Rukia. Deep down inside, Naruto was relieved that the seemingly cold and aloof 6th Division actually did care for his adopted sister, despite that fact that he didn't do anything to stop Rukia's execution. As Naruto took note of 6 other people on the hill, but whose appearances could not be discerned by Naruto as Tosen and Jin blocked his view of them, he heard Renji speaking to him. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Renji asked in a strained and weak voice. Naruto turned his attention to Renji, who looked like he was using all of his strength just to ask him this question. "I'm here to stop Aizen and his 2 lackeys, and to thank you for stopping Rukia's execution," Naruto said, only for Renji to shake his head at this. "No, you shouldn't thank me. You should thank Ichigo," Renji panted out before he collapsed from his wounds, but not before silently praying that Naruto would survive his fight with the traitor. The blonde Shinigami now turned his attention to the 3 traitors, and his anger flared when he saw them. Aizen was standing there along with Jin and Kanem Tmsen, the now former captain of the 9th Division. Kanem was a man with black skin as well, black hair that he had braided as well as tied into a ponytail. He wore a shakusho with the sleeves rolled up to his shoulders, and it was tied with a purple obi sash. He also had on black fingerless gloves, an orange scarf, and he had on a visor, which hid his featureless eyes. Naruto then noticed a certain object that Aizen was holding in his hand. It appeared to be a bluish-purple orb with a translucent lavender-colored shell covering it. Aizen looked over Naruto's new look before finally speaking. "So you have achieved Bankai. If I didn't know any better, it looks like it's just a small upgrade to your Shikai. But I'm not the person who judges people on appearances, Uzumaki-kun." Naruto ignored Aizen's comment and glared at him with eyes filled with anger, hatred, and malevolence. His gaze seemed to pierce through Aizen and, to the surprise of the traitor, it made him feel very uneasy. Naruto finally broke the silence in a hostile voice obviously full of venom. "You threw the Sarate into chaos, set everyone against each other, nearly got Renji and a lot of other people killed, and tried to have Rukia-chan executed for a fucking marble," Naruto hissed, to which Aizen responded by letting out a low chuckle as he held up the orb in his hand. "This is not a mere marble, Uzumaki-kun. This is a device known as the Mjyoku. I won't explain how, but it allows those who possess it to dissolve the boundaries between Shinigami and Hollows, allowing one race to gain the powers of the other. With this, I shall raise an army of perfected Arankar, overthrow the Soul Society, and crush the Sarate like an ant under a boot," Aizen explained. "I'm not letting you continue any further with your plans, Aizen. I will kill you if I have no, scratch that, I'm going to kill you right here, regardless of whether or not I have to do so, Naruto said as he got into a fighting stance, gripping both of his hands on Ifk no Mai. Shall I take care of the little punk, Aizen-sama? Jin asked as he grasped the hilt of his zanpakuto. No Jin, I shall take care of him myself, Aizen said as he stepped forward. Kanem then placed a hand on Aizen's shoulder, which caused a former captain to stop in tracks for the moment. You should be careful, Aizen-sama. From what I have heard from his father, Fugaku-san and Yuki, take this boy is very powerful and skilled. Don't take him lightly. The blind swordsman warned. Aizen, being as full of himself as he was, paid no heed to Tosen's concerns. There is no need to fret, Kanem. He may have been able to unravel my plan and discover the Shikai ability of my zanpakuto, but he has no chance of defeating the complete hypnosis. Aizen then continued walking forward until he was a few feet in front of his opponent, his smirk still plastered on his face. Before we fight, Uzumaki-kun, I have something to ask you. How were you able to see through my mask when everyone else in the Sirte could not? Aizen asked his opponent. Naruto sighed before he gave Aizen his explanation. When I was alive, the people of my village resented me. They gave me hate-filled glares and ugly looks. Parents even told their children to stay away from me and not to play with me. Thus, I would sometimes create a false mask of happiness as a way of dealing with all of the sadness, depression, and loneliness that filled my life, and because of that I'm able to tell when someone else is being sincere or not based on their expressions. That's how I was able to see through your act. I see. In any case, before I beat you and leave you clinging to life, Uzumaki-kun, I shall show my true self, Aizen declared. Aizen then took off his glasses and crushed them in his hand. He then ran his other hand through his hair, revealing a completely new look. He now had menacing eyes, and his hair was swept back, with a single strand hanging down his face. Naruto just smirked at this. Ooh, you swept your hair back and removed your glasses to reveal a fucking fashion model. I'm so terrified. I didn't think that it was possible, but you look even smugger than before. He taunted. Aizen's left eyebrow began to twitch, indicating that he was finally losing his patience with the blonde lieutenant. He proceeded to draw out his zanpakuto and held it in front of him. Shatter, Kimka Sujetsu, Mirror Flower, Water Moon. With that, Aizen's Shikai was released. While it appeared that Aizen was still standing in front of his opponent, he had actually moved back a few yards. Naruto smirked as he contacted the tailed beast inside of him. Kurama. Hey Kurama. Wake up. He mentally shouted. The giant fox was currently inside of his cage, taking a nap. He groggily opened his eyes when he heard the voice of his container. What do you want? In case you haven't noticed, I'm trying to sleep, he said in an irritated tone. You're always trying to sleep, Kei's no moi said in a deadpan manner, hoping to get a reaction out of the tailed beast. Kei's, there's a time and a place for everything. The situation right now is not one of those. Naruto shouted at his zanpakuto spirit before returning his attention to his other tenant. I need you to give me your Reiatsu, Naruto said. Kurama then did a facepalm in response to his container's request. You don't need to ask me for my Reiatsu. You're fully capable of accessing it. Just concentrate and it'll come. The only time you need to wake me up is if you plan to meld my energy with yours, otherwise do not disturb me in my sleep, Naruto. Oh thanks anyway, Kurama, Naruto said sheepishly as he exited his mindscape. Ast. Number 1, Instrumental, from Bleach, link www.youtube.com watch B equals DSXNUOGKXC4. Add a slash symbol after the .com part and don't forget to backspace the open spaces. Suddenly, Naruto was enveloped in a shroud of Reiatsu that took the appearance of flickering yellow flames. He now appeared to wear a necklace made of Magatama beads around his neck, with a larger Magatama bead on his stomach. The circle of the larger bead appeared to have a spiral pattern. In addition, his hair had 2 horn-like extensions at the front, and the color of his eyes had changed from blue to orange. Naruto has just used the Nine Tails QP Chakra mode. In my story, I'll be using the abbreviation of KCM when I write about it outside of dialogue. The Reiatsu shroud that Naruto had used increased his speed, strength, and the power of his Kidm spells. Naruto then stepped away from the illusion and right in front of the real Aizen, shocking him. Before he could react, Naruto delivered a powerful haymaker to Aizen's face. The traitor, along with everyone else, stumbled back and stared at the blonde Shinigami. I have news for you, Aizen. I have a way of countering your Shikai. And don't bothering asking me how I did because I'm not telling you, Naruto taunted. He hadn't revealed Kurama's tailed beast skills, such as the ability to detect negative emotions. This worked perfectly against Aizen's illusion type zanpakuto. Naruto, as if he was trying to provoke Aizen, then proceeded to give him the finger. To the surprise of everyone else on that hill, Aizen's face contorted in anger as he started to growl. Aizen never showed any outward expressions of anger before, and yet Naruto succeeded in forcing one out of him in less than a few minutes. "Don't get too arrogant, you fool," Aizen shouted as he attempted to slash him with his zanpakuto. To his surprise, Naruto blocked the attack with two of fingers. Aizen had ironically blocked one of Ichigo's attacks the same way a few moments earlier. Naruto then pushed the blade away from him and then pointed his left index finger at Aizen. Pad number 1. SHM, thrust, Naruto said as his finger generated a force that pushed Aizen back. He then charged forward at him with his straight blade katana in a two-handed grip. Naruto delivered a vertical strike at Aizen, who barely able to block with his own sword. Naruto delivered an onslaught of sword strikes, which was blocked. However, Naruto was relentless in his barrage and didn't give Aizen time to counter. Naruto then suddenly stopped his assault and jumped a bit into the air. He then delivered a butterfly kick to Aizen's face. Sheathing his sword into his sash, Naruto began to deliver a barrage of punches to Aizen's face and torso. The force of the two kicks and barrage of punches stunned Aizen. Naruto pulled his right hand back as he prepared for his next attack. "This is for Rukia," he roared as he delivered a jab to Aizen's face. He then followed up with a left cross, also delivered to his face. The sound of bones crunching could be heard as Naruto's jab connected. Aizen clutched his now broken and bleeding nose with his free hand as he held on to his zanpakuto. He then swung his sword at Naruto, who blocked each attack with Tmzifk no Mai. Naruto parried the attack and countered with two diagonal slashes across Aizen's chest. He then struck Aizen with a powerful roundhouse kick to the stomach. The force of said kick was so powerful that it sent the traitor flying back into a tree. Naruto cautiously approached the defeated traitor. He pointed his katana at Aizen, with the tip of the blade millimeters from his throat. "It's over, Aizen," he said coldly as he focused his killing intent on him. End scene. Much to his surprise, Aizen just smiled as he gave a small chuckle. "No, Uzumaki-kun. This is only the beginning." With that, three rectangular-shaped black portals opened up in the sky above them. Naruto's eyes widened in shock when he saw what was coming out of the portals. They were Jillian-class hollows, recognizable by their white masks with elongated noses. Several Ajuchas and low-level hollows also accompanied them. The golden, square-shaped beam of light suddenly engulfed Aizen, and he slowly began to drift upwards. Two more beams of light appeared where Jin and Kanem were. Aizen, still clutching his broken nose, looked down at Naruto. "Until we meet again, Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki." Naruto gave out a low growl, but his attention elsewhere as he now had to deal with a very large swarm of hollows. He was suddenly attacked by a Ajucha's hollow that vaguely resembled a tiger. The hollow tiger tried to slash at Naruto with its claws, but he used his shunpo to get some distance between them. He then held out his palm, aimed at the tiger hollow's head. Heido number 31. "Shakum, red fire cannon," Naruto said as a red orb of energy generated in front of him. He then discharged the orb, which took the form of a small pillar of red energy. The spell took the hollow's head clean off and its body began to dissipate. However, Naruto had now gained the attention of a Jillian, who started to lumber towards him. Naruto faced the direction of the hollow, holding Tmzifk no Mai with both hands. Orange Riatsu soon covered the blade, which was subsequently overlapped by a small cyclone. "Hazakama, wind sickle," Naruto yelled out as he slashed at the air. The Riatsu flied forward, and it soon took the form of a crescent surrounded by a shell of wind. The crescent went straight through the Jillian, cutting it in half. It let out a shriek of pain as its body began to break down. Naruto got into another battle stance when suddenly, something rushed past him. It was Zabuza, who had an eager grin on his face. He held his zanpakuto in his right hand, despite the large size it possessed. He ran up towards an Ajuchas who resembled a frilled lizard, bring his hand back. "Thesm, iron palm," he yelled out as he hit the hollow's mask with an open palm strike. The force of the blow effortlessly shattered the mask, and the hollow soon dissipated. Naruto looked shocked for a bit before he heard a familiar voice behind him. "You seem to be having fun, son." Naruto turned, and there stood Minato with the rest of the shinobi, with the exception of Mikoto. In his hands was the shikai of his zanpakuto, Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God. It took the form of a pair of tri-pronged kunai. They were 3 times larger than an average kunai. The handles were white, while the blades were silver. Minato extended his hand and helped Naruto up. "I take it you weren't able to stop Aizen from escaping?" "No." A few Jillians used negation, counter-membrane on him, Jin, and Kanem. And he left behind an entire swarm of hollows as a parting gift. "Don't worry, Naruto. You did your best and you were able to take away Aizen's pride. Now, let's take care of this mess." With that, Minato flash-stepped in front of a hollow, he then slashed it across the mask diagonally with both kunai. He then flash-stepped to another and did the same. This was Minato's fighting style, relying on his use of shunpo to quickly attack his enemies. Zabuza now held out his zanpakuto out in front of him with both hands grasped on it. He then yelled out its release command. Annihilate, Kirioni, Miss Demon. The white-blue light covered the sword as it began expanding until it suddenly stopped. Kirioni's Shikai took the form of a zanbato that resembled the executioner's blade that Zabuza used in his previous life. The zanbato had a 4.5-foot blade with a foot-high hilt. The blade was colored dull gray, while the hilt was black with dark blue hilt wrappings. Engraved on the blade near the hilt was the kanji for water on either side. Zabuza lifted the giant sword with both hands and rushed out into battle. Kushina and Fugaku also unsheathed their zanpakutos, but neither released their shikai. Haku, on the other hand, already had his shikai released. Naruto got back into his fighting position. He then flash-stepped in front of a mantis-like hollow and cut off its head with one sweep motion. He then built up Riatsu in his blade and launched another Kazakama. The wave of Riatsu went flying and cut through 3 Jillians in succession. He then concentrated until 2 arms made of Riatsu sprouted from his shoulders. The arms proceeded to grab 2 Ajuchas and smashed them together. Zabuza was ruthless in battle as he sliced through hollows with his zanbato. He truly lived up to his moniker of the Demon of the Hidden Mist. Kushina fought off the hollows with a combination of mid to high level Kido spells and the use of her sealed zanpakuto. In a matter of minutes, the entire swarm had been neutralized. Naruto approached the ground, breathing heavily as his Riatsu cloak dissipated. He had purposely landed near Ichigo, who was shocked by what he had seen. Aizen had effortlessly defeated him and Renji without even breaking a sweat, while this blonde Shinigami was able to effortlessly pummel through him and still have enough energy left to take on an entire swarm of hollows. Naruto looked down at the orange-haired teenager as he gave a weak smile. "Hey, Pant, you're Ichigo, right?" "I am. We met at the Senseikiku a few days back. I didn't get your name, though." "Well, I'm Naruto, Pant, Namikaze Uzumaki, Lieutenant of the Pant 13th Division. I want to thank you for having the gall to break into the Sirte just to save Rukia." But that, Naruto passed out on the ground, completely and utterly exhausted. He had a smile on his face, as he had been able to take Aizen down a peg or two and had properly met the de facto leader of the Rioka. Soon, both Minato and Kushina arrived with the officers of the 4th Division to give their son medical attention. Ichigo looked on as Orihime and the rest of his friends got up and rushed to his side. Things had more or less returned to normal in the week after Aizen's defection. Jinrikisei Shijikuni Yamamoto had taken on the duties of the now inoperative Central 46. Soifin had now reconciled with Yuruchi, her mentor, and had made amends with her. As for the Ryoka, they stayed and hanged out in the Sirte. Minato had gotten to know Yuruchi very well and admired her mastery of shunpo. Likewise, Yuruchi was impressed with Minato's advanced skill in shunpo. Turns out the two were evenly matched in shunpo, much to Soifin's horror. As for Naruto, he had spent the week recovering in the 4th Division's SMGM Kikkotsumesho. While he had not suffered any injuries, he had been completely exhausted and needed extensive recuperation. Captain Unohana also wanted to keep him to see if the simultaneous use of his Bankai and Kurama's Riatsu shroud had any adverse effects on his body. Over the course of the week, he had received many visitors. His parents had visited him, and Kushina had fussed over him, making sure that her son was getting enough sleep and eating right. Captain Yukitake had paid him a visit and gave him a large amount of candy as a get-well-soon gift. Lastly, Kenpachi and his lieutenant, Yuichiro Kusajishi, had visited him. Kenpachi made the blonde lieutenant to promise to fight him as soon as he was fully recovered, which Naruto reluctantly did. Yuichiro happily ate the candy and told Naruto that she wanted to show him the secret tunnel she had made under Byakushi's, her nickname for Byakuya, house. Naruto was now resting in his hospital room, reading a copy of Sirte Communication magazine, specifically Yukitake's rejection of the twin fish cereal. There was a knock at his door and 2 people came in. The first was a cute nurse with chestnut brown hair, carrying a tray of food. Like all nurses working in the SMGM Kikkotsumesho, she wore a pink variation of the shikishima with a pink hat. The other person was Captain Unohana, who gave the 13th Division lieutenant a warm smile. "Good day, Naruto-kun. How are you today?" she asked as the nurse set the food in front of Naruto. "I'm doing fine, Captain. A bit bored though," Naruto said as he began to eat his lunch, which consisted of beef curry over white rice. Among the other changes that he had went through, Naruto was no longer a picky eater and had extended his diet to various other foods, although ramen remained his favorite food. "I have some news for you, Naruto-kun. I have come up with a diagnosis of your exhaustion." "Really? Then by all means, please continue," Naruto said with a mouthful of food. "From what I have observed, your Bankai and your Riatsu shroud offer you an immense increase in power. However, using them together leaves considerable strain on your body. If you use them together continuously, it would leave you seriously wounded or it could possibly even kill you. Then I'll just use the combination when I'm facing somebody really powerful or as a last resort, Naruto said as he got up and stretched. He was about to leave the room when Unohana suddenly stopped him. Where are you going, Naruto-kun? I'm going back to my barracks. Captain Yukitake isn't well enough to look after division himself, plus Enterm and Kion aren't confident enough to lead it. Naruto-kun, I suggest that you stay here for a little while longer. That's okay, Captain. I've already gotten plenty of rest and… Please, I insist, Unohana said softly as she closed her eyes and smiled. Naruto now felt a sense of foreboding as he broke out into a cold sweat, completely petrified. He tried to say something, but he found the words he wanted to say stuck in his throat. Despite her polite and gentle nature, several members of the Gotei 13, most notably the unseated officers of the 11th Division, were scared of Unohana and did their best not to get on her bad side. The only person who wasn't afraid of Unohana was Kushina. I'll just stay here if that's okay with you, Naruto said meekly as he sat back down on his bed. He was currently thinking how somebody so kind could also be so scary. Unohana smiled as she left the room. Alright. I'll come back to check on you in half an hour, she said as she left. 30 minutes later. Unohana was just coming back to check up on the 13th Division lieutenant. As she walked into his room, she was surprised at what she saw. Naruto was gone, along with his uniform, his personal effects, and his zanpakuto. She walked out of the room and stopped a passing Hanaderm Yamada. Hanaderm, do you know what happened to Naruto-kun? Lieutenant Uzumaki left about 5 minutes after you walked out of his room, Captain, Hanaderm replied nervously. Well, that's the 20th time in this year alone that Naruto-kun has done this, Unohana said as she walked away, before musing to herself. I should consider using high-level Bakudm spells to restrain him if this continues to happen. Like Tsunade before Unohana found out that Naruto was not one to stay immobile for long, and she would probably have to solve this problem the hard way. Byakuya's room, SMGM Kikotsumesho, Sirite, Soul Society. Meanwhile, after Naruto had left his room, he had searched the entire SMGM Kikotsumesho for Byakuya and being very careful to avoid being found by Unohana or Aizen. After some time, he had finally found Byakuya's room and was surprised to find Renji there. He was sitting on a chair, apparently carving a wooden block. Byakuya was sitting up straight in his bed, blankly staring at a wall. Byakuya then finally decided to break the awkward silence. Lieutenant Uzumaki, what are you doing here? I thought that you hated me. Naruto sighed as he began to ask his question. To be honest, I currently have mixed feelings about you, Byakuya. When I arrived at Sankyoku Hill, I saw that you took an attack that was meant for Rukia. Why did you choose to interfere there when you did nothing to stop Rukia's execution? The lieutenant's words hit Byakuya hard as he looked up at Naruto. He then looked back at the wall. I know I have some explaining to do. I should begin at the time I got married. Approximately 55 years ago, I married a woman named Hisana, who was a commoner from the Inuzuri district of the Rukongai. My parents were disappointed that I broke the law by accepting a commoner into the noble Kichiki clan. 5 years after we married, she contracted an illness and was near death. Her final wish was for me to find and adopt her younger sister Rukia, who she abandoned as an infant. She told me not to tell her that she was her sister, as she considered herself to be unworthy. 1 year later, I found and adopted Rukia and respected my late wife's final wish. However, I had again broken the law. Some time after my parents had died, I swore on their graves to uphold the law, no matter what. When Rukia was sentenced to be executed, I did not know what to do. I was stuck between a promise to my parents to uphold the law and a promise to my wife to protect her sister. However, the punch you delivered to me along with the lecture made me start to rethink the actions I had made. And my defeat at the hands of Ichigo Kurosaki made me realize that the law is not perfect. If it had not been for the both of you, I don't think Hisana would ever be able to forgive me. Both of you have my gratitude. Naruto just stood there as he let all of what he heard sink in. The person before him was a far cry from the Byakuya Kichiki that he knew. Instead of the cold, aloof, and uncaring captain, the man in front of him was a conflicted person who was struggling on the inside. He was now looking at the 6th Division captain in a whole new light. Renji, who was equally taken aback by this revelation, looked up at his captain. He then began to speak. Captain Kichiki, I… However, before Renji could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the sound of rushing footsteps, which were strangely coming from the direction of Byakuya's window. Renji. Ichigo shouted as he stuck his upper torso into the window. This took everyone by surprise, including the normally stoic Byakuya. Renji, who was now pissed off, started to literally butt heads with Ichigo. Ichigo, what the hell? How dare interrupt us? I was about to say something really cool to Captain Kichiki and you had to ruin it. "Oh, sorry," Ichigo said as he sheepishly backed down. "Hey, do any of you guys know where Rukia went? She isn't in her quarters." "What? You better not have lost her again," Renji said sternly as Naruto instinctively grabbed the hilt of his zanpakuto. "No, I just thought you might know," Ichigo said as he raised his arms in defense. "Kurosaki-kun, don't you know it's dangerous to climb up to a third-story window?" A cheerful voice said as a teenage girl with burnt orange hair climbed up and perched herself beside Ichigo. This girl was Orihime, one of the Rioka, who the rest of the Gotei 13 got to know during the week. Everyone in the room was shocked by the fact that Orihime was able to climb to the top with relative ease. "Yeah, but how did you get up here?" Ichigo asked in utter confusion. He then turned to everyone in Byakuya's room. "We'll be going now," he said before he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around and saw that Naruto was looking at him. "Mind if I tag along?" "Sure, but why?" "From what Rukia told me, you're a lot like me and I would like to know more about you. Plus I'm getting sick of hanging around this place." "Fair enough. Anyway, see you later Renji, Byakuya." The two Ryoka, now joined by the blonde lieutenant, left the hospital room as Renji looked on. "What the hell are they up to?" he muttered to himself. He then noticed that Byakuya appeared to be thinking. What's wrong, Captain?" "Well, it's just that I certainly hope this Ichigo doesn't intend to keep referring me without an honorific. I find his lack of respect disturbing. He's even ruder than Lieutenant Uzumaki." Shiba clan residence, Rukongai, Soul Society. A few hours later. After some time searching, the three teenagers finally found Rukia near the Shiba clan residence. She was currently wearing a dark purple kimono with a dark yellow obi sash. Rukia was currently talking with Kukaku Shiba, the matriarch of the Shiba clan. Kukaku was a youthful-looking woman with green eyes and messy black hair that parted in half at the small of her back. She wore a white skirt and red robes that showed off her ample bosom. For some reason, she wore bandages over her hair, around her right shoulder, and both ankles. Kukaku was missing her right arm and wore a prosthetic in its place. "Aha! I thought I'd find you here," Ichigo said as he approached Rukia. Rukia then turned around and saw her two friends and superior. "Ichigo, Orihime, Naruto," Rukia said surprised. Before Naruto could even say hi to his friend's subordinate, Ichigo bluntly continued on. "Sorry to interrupt your little chat, but right now we should probably head back and get some rest for tomorrow. In the morning they're going to open a gate that'll let us return to our world. And you're still not back to full health." Rukia turned back and sighed, as if she was struggling to say something. "I have to tell you something, it's only right that you be the first to know. I've decided, Ichigo, to stay here, in the Soul Society." Surprisingly, Ichigo didn't object to this. Instead, a small smile appeared, replacing his usual scowl. "Well, that's fine. Good for you. It sounds like you've made up your mind. And there's not much else to say. If you decided that you want to stay, then that's what you should do." Naruto also gave a smile of contentment as he stood next to Orihime. He knew that Rukia and Ichigo had become close friends in the time she had been missing. He knew that they would miss each other, but he was also glad that he had his friend back. He was suddenly broken out of his thoughts when Kukaku appeared in front of Ichigo with a fist raised. "Ichigo, you finally showed up, huh? Well, hello again, Kukaku," Orihime said cheerfully as she waved to the Shiba clan matriarch. "So you're checking out in the morning, huh? Then stay and have dinner with us tonight," Kukaku said, with her tone changing from aggressive to a rather ecstatic one. Ichigo was now stumbling on his words as he tried to come up with an excuse. "Thanks, I would, but I don't know if I can." Ichigo was suddenly cut off as Kukaku's fist landed on his face. "Not this again. The correct answer is yes, I'd love to stay. You know, I think dinner tonight would be great," Ichigo said as he grasped his now bleeding nose. Naruto snickered to himself until he found Kukaku right in front of him. "So you're the brat that replaced Kain, huh?" she said, looked the blonde Shinigami over. She had to admit that the kid did look a bit like Kain, except for the blonde hair and whisker marks, and that his facial features were rounder. When she finished inspecting him, she was annoyed to find out that Naruto's attention was currently focused on her breasts, which in his opinion, rivaled both Tsunade's and Ranjiku's in size. Kukaku broke him out of his trance by punching him in the face. "You little pervert. That's awfully rude, you know. Didn't your mother teach you any manners?" "I raised myself for the majority of my life, and I met my mother only 3 years ago," Naruto exclaimed as he held his now bleeding nose. "In any case, stay and have dinner. From what I've heard from Yuki-take, you're a lot like Kain," Kukaku said as she led the two Ryoka and two Shinigami inside of her house. A few hours later. "And that's the story of my past life and present life so far," Naruto said as he took another bite out of his food. Ichigo and Orihime sat across from him while Rukia sat next to him. Ichigo was at a loss for words at what he heard, while Orihim's eyes were watering. Before Naruto could react, Orihim reached out and hugged the young lieutenant. Naruto blushed a bit as he never had a girl of his own age give him this kind of contact unless it involved getting hit by Sakura. Thank you, Orihim-chan, Naruto said awkwardly as he patted the busty teenager on the back. Ichigo broke out of his daze and made his opinion heard. Well, Naruto, I have to say that your childhood, well, it sounds like it sucked. Actually, it could have been much worse. I could have been beaten, be used for target or jutsu practice, or have my food poisoned. But any physical pain that I could have suffered could never compare the loneliness and sadness I faced. I'm surprised that you don't hold any resentment towards your village for the way they treated you, Orihim said as she let Naruto out of her hug. Actually, Orihim, for the longest time, I did hate them. I wanted to get revenge on them and have them feel the pain they dealt to me. But that was until I found my precious people. Precious people? They're the people who I've formed bonds with and who I want to protect, like Iruka-sensei, Kasushi-sensei, my teammates on Team 7, and the rest of my graduating class. What surprises me is that you got yourself killed trying to save the Sasuke guy, Ichigo said. From what Naruto had told him, Sasuke sounded a lot like Uruk, except he was arrogant, cold, and obsessive. Ichigo, I gave my life to save Sasuke for 2 reasons. First off, I promised a friend that I would bring him back, and I never go back on my word. Secondly, I considered Sasuke to be a friend despite the way he treated me. I wanted to be his friend because I knew what it was like to be alone. However, I was jealous of his skills and talent, so I decided to become his rival, so I could prove that I could be his equal. But over time, we become like brothers. Even after he left Konoha, I still considered him my friend, and I was hell-bent on stopping him from going to that sick bastard Orochimaru. Ichigo looked back at Naruto a bit stunned. He could see that he and Naruto were similar in a lot of ways. They both were determined to protect the people that were close to them, and both risked life and limb to save a friend. Naruto looked outside of the house's windows and saw that it was pretty late. He then got up and stretched a bit before speaking. I don't mean to be a party pooper, but it's getting kind of late and we all have a big day tomorrow. I'm going back to my barracks to get some sleep. Naruto then headed towards the exit, but suddenly stopped when he was near the doorframe. He turned towards Kukaku and gave her a small smile. Thank you for the meal, Kukaku. I hope to speak to you again soon. Kukaku, who was currently smoking her Kaseru pipe, gave him a nod as a sign of acknowledgement. Naruto then walked out of the house and headed off towards the Sirte. Tsukayoku Hill, Sirte, Soul Society. The next day. Naruto, along with many of the Gotei 13 captains and the shinobi, had arrived at Tsukayoku Hill to see the Rioka off. Yukite had explained to the group that the gate they were about to enter was the official Sinkamen, which incorporated a Reishi Hinkanki that would convert their spiritual bodies back into human form once they had reached the world of the living. Yukite also presented Ichigo with a substitute Shinigami badge as a token of gratitude. It would officially identify him as a substitute Shinigami, and it would allow his soul to leave his body. After thanking Yukite, Ichigo walked over to Naruto with a small smirk on his face. Well, looks like this is it for now. Don't worry, I have a feeling that we'll be seeing each other really soon. I hope I get to know more about you, Ichigo. Likewise, Ichigo said as he extended his fist, and Naruto promptly fist bumped it. He then walked towards the Sinkamen with his friends, before turning around and facing Rukia. Well, see you around, Rukia. Yeah, thank you, Ichigo. Ichigo and the rest of the Ryoka walked into the Sinkamen, and they suddenly disappeared in a bright flash of light. Naruto then approached Rukia, who had a sad look in her eyes. You sad that he's finally gone, Rukia-chan? Yes, I am, Rukia said as she looked down at the ground. Naruto gave her a warm smile as he patted her on the back. Don't worry, he'll be back soon. We'll need all the help we can get in the fight against Aizen. Naruto looked down near the ground and saw an object near his feet. It was a small black cage that contained a hell butterfly, a creature that guided the Shinigami through the Sinkamen. Looks like I forgot to give them their hell butterfly. But I'm sure they'll be fine, Naruto noted absent-mindedly as he headed back towards his barracks. The Bankai. Meanwhile. What the hell, Yoruichi? If this is the official gate, then why do we have to run for our lives just like the last time? Ichigo yelled as the Kuntatsu, the street sweeper of the Bankai, was currently chasing him and his friends. We need a hell butterfly to clear the gate safely. We were supposed to be given one, but some idiot must have forgotten to, Yoruichi, who was currently back in her cat form, said as the group of teenagers narrowly made it to the exit, only to find themselves in the skies above Karakura town. Captain's Assembly Hall, Sirte, Soul Society. 3 days later. A meeting was currently being held with the remaining captains on what to do about Aizen's betrayal. The current topic they were discussing was who would become the new captains of the 3rd, 5th, and 9th division. It was unanimously decided that Minato Namikaze and Fugaku Uchiha would become the captains of the 5th and 9th divisions respectively, since both of them had experience in leadership positions before. They were now discussing potential candidates for the 3rd division captain position, such as Shisuke Amigai, who was a high-ranking member of the Amnitsukidan. Yukitake then decided to voice his opinion. I would like to nominate my lieutenant, Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, as the captain of the 3rd division. I know he may be brash and a bit young, but he has proven himself to be a capable leader. During the Rioka invasion, he was able to keep our division together despite the chaos surrounding us and the tensions that were tearing the Sirte apart. Well, the Gaki has my vote, Kamraku said. Since he was a good friend of Yukitake, Kamraku had gotten to know Naruto very well, and he could see that despite his flaws, the boy had a lot of potential. I also vote yes. The kid's a hell of a good fighter and he's pretty handy with a sword, Kenpachi said with a small smirk. I vote yes on Lieutenant Uzumaki being promoted to the position of 3rd Division Captain, Sajin Kamamura, the wolf-like 7th Division Captain, said. He sympathized with Naruto since both of them shared the experience of being an outcast. He also hoped that Naruto would help Kanem, who he was friends with, and set him on the right path. Finally, Naruto didn't care about Kamamura's appearance and in fact didn't so much as even comment on it. Naruto-kun has shown to be caring and considerate of others, so I vote yes, Anohana said in her usual gentle voice. Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki has my vote, Toshiro Hitsugaya said. Although the blonde teenager sometimes got on Toshiro's nerves, he held a good deal of respect towards him and also realized he had the potential to be a leader. Although I do agree with Captain Yukitake that he lacks experience, I vote yes, Soifun stated. She was, surprisingly, on good terms with the lieutenant and considered him to be an excellent sparring partner since he possessed an excellent mastery of Hakuta. I vote no, and I don't feel like giving my reasons why, Mayuri Kuritsuchi said in his usual eerie tone. His reasons for not voting for Naruto were actually very pathetic. When Naruto first joined the Gotei 13, Mayuri wanted to experiment on the boy since he was, and still is, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. However, Kushina had beaten Mayuri within an inch of his life for trying to harm her son, even though Naruto didn't find out about his incident until after Kushina's rampage. After that, Mayuri had spent 2 months in the hospital, having to be put in a body cast, despite the fact he contained artificial organs. He also hated the blonde since every time Naruto would pass by him, he would utter the name Kisu Kurihara, a name that infuriated the 12th Division captain to no end. Naruto likewise despised Mayuri since he had a general disregard for life and showed little respect towards others. Naruto also hated the way he treated Nemu, his lieutenant and daughter. Denying the blonde the position of captain was somewhat satisfying for Mayuri. I vote yes on promoting Lieutenant Uzumaki, Byakuya said in a calm voice. This took everyone in the room by surprise, as the Kichiki clan head took little to no interest in Naruto. Head Captain Yamamoto appeared to be silent for a few minutes before finally speaking. It is decided then. Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki will be promoted to the position of captain of the 3rd division. Head captain, white. Yamamoto said in a voice that left no room for argument. He then focused his attention to the rest of the captains. The inauguration ceremony for the new captain shall take place 2 days from today. You are now dismissed. The remaining captains promptly left and departed back to their divisions, with Yukitake going to tell Naruto the good news. 13th Division Barracks, Sirte, Soul Society. 10 minutes later. Yukitake walked through the halls of the 13th Division Barracks, looking for his lieutenant. He soon found him in a room with Rukia, Kian, and Centrum. They were currently having green tea and rice balls. Naruto noticed his captain entering the room and gave him a smile. Hi captain. Would you like some tea? We just made it. Maybe later, Naruto-san. I have some very important news to tell you. Really? What is it? Naruto said as he took a bite out of a rice ball and began to chew it. I have recently come back from a meeting with the remaining captains and it has been decided that you will be promoted to the position of captain of the 3rd division. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise at what Yukitake just said and he immediately began to choke on his rice ball. Rukia dealt several hard blows to Naruto's back until the half-chewed piece of food came out of his mouth and onto the table. He then looked up at his captain with a confused look on his face. Are you serious? I've only been in the Gotei 13 for 3 years and I'm already a captain. Naruto said in a voice that was bordering on being excited and being shocked. It normally took decades for somebody to become captain, let alone a lieutenant. He considered himself lucky to be handpicked by Yukitake when he just graduated from the Shino Academy. Yukitake gave the newly promoted captain a warm smile. I am definitely serious. Many of the captains hold you in high opinion, excluding Mayuri. I can't begin to tell you how proud I am. You are now officially the youngest captain in the history of the Gotei 13. Rukia then did something very unexpected. She first gave Naruto a hug and then pecked him on the cheek. Naruto blushed slightly as Rukia gave him a smile. I'm happy for you, Naruto. When I first met you, I knew you had what it took to become a captain. Thanks, Rukia-chan. Naruto said happily before he was interrupted by the loud glassadering voice of Centrum. Captain Uzumaki. I can't tell you how I'm feeling right now. I'm happy that you're being promoted, but I'm also sad that you won't be with his anymore. I will truly miss you, sir. Hey. That's my line, Centrum. I spent more time with Captain Uzumaki, so I'm the one that'll miss him the most. Why do you always have to hone in on my actions, Keen? I knew Captain Uzumaki better than you, so I'll miss him even more. Why don't you shut up, you baka? Why don't you make me, you shrimp? Yuki, Take, Naruto, and Rukia all sweat-dropped at the behavior of the 2/3 seat officers as they continued to bicker. Naruto definitely knew that this was one thing he wouldn't miss about the 13th division. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.